Good morning, world.
Good morning.
As you can see, I've got a cough drop in my mouth because I still have a little bit of a cough.
It's not a cough.
From my cough that I had over.
Oh, you got the C. The C is right.
Yeah. So, as you saw from the title, we're gonna go over kind of my COVID experience, and Cedric. Brave Cedric.
Don't touch me.
Is here with me. I'm past my 10 days. I'm good to go. It's the reason we weren't on last Thursday.
Yes.
So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Let's get into it. Stay tuned. I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian. And this is Cedric and Brian.
It's a damn shame.
All right, before I get into my experience, and I'll kind of explain how it kind of went through my whole household, I want to talk about some numbers. I've been watching some more episodes of Peak Prosperity. We've done some episodes with the doctor on there. Great episodes. Look it up, Peak Prosperity. He'll dig into the numbers. So if you're like me and you like numbers and looking at statistics, I do that all the time. We're not going to bore you with that today. Kind of just go over it in general, but go to his channel, and he just had a great episode with a Belgian scientist, and he talked about basically a type of mass psychosis that happens. It happened during Nazi Germany. It happened around the same time, about 5 years before that, with the Soviet Union. How you can get a whole population to believe absurd things, and it doesn't take. He says it only takes. It's like hypnosis. But when it's on a mass scale, you only need about 30% of the population. So right. He kind of relates at what's going on now with the whole COVID thing. Why, even though the science clearly shows that that works against it with the masks and all these numbers that we're seeing, why you can get mass people following even something as absurd,
right? Like
the gas chambers, and you look back in history and it's like, well, how did a whole society?
Well, just a few days ago, last week, I heard that Germany is now having mandatory quarantines for the unvaccinated.
Again, which is, well, we'll get down and we'll get to that in a minute. Before we do that, though, we have to thank our sponsors, My Patriot Supply. Watch this. Folks, are you getting that uneasy feeling about the future? You can't put your finger on it, but you know something big is going to happen soon. And it's not going to be good. Millions of Americans feel that way right now, and they're quietly stockpiling emergency food while they can.
Do you have enough emergency food to get you through a sudden crisis? If not, check out My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's #1 preparedness company, and they've served millions of American families. Right now, you can save 25% off their popular 4-week emergency food kit. You'll enjoy a hearty breakfast, lunch, dinner, drinks, and snacks, totaling over 2,000 calories a day, while everyone else is standing in those food lines. Plus, the food stays fresh for up to 25 years in proper storage, so it will be there when you need it. And by the way things are going, we're probably going to need it much sooner than we think. But don't wait. Go to www.preparewithcedricandbrian.com and claim your 4-week emergency food kit now. Don't forget, you'll save 25% if you act right now. Remember, that's www.preparewithcedricandbrian.com. Make sure you stay prepared.
Yeah. So go look at Peak Prosperity's latest episode with his Belgian scientist. But just look at some of these numbers. I'm going to put them up on the board here. If you look at the number of cases and deaths of COVID in 2020, when we did not have a vaccine, and now look at 2021, you can see there's more cases and more deaths. So if the vaccines are supposed to be this thing, obviously if you talk to anybody out there who got their vaccines, they think that that's going to save them. The numbers do not bear it out. And even though, again, the mass psychosis of crowds, people still think they're not going to get it.
Right.
Now I'll go into my personal story.
Now we were going to put this out last Thursday, but you weren't feeling it.
I'm going to go back just for a minute. So I'll throw numbers up in while I'm talking. So over about 3 weeks ago, a good friend of mine, the guy that I golf with, Mike, he came down with COVID. He's not sure how he got it. But he got COVID. Well, he thought he just had a cold. He waited and waited and waited about 5 days until his breathing got bad. Then he started to do what I used and what my wife used, my whole family used, which is the FLCCC protocol. So the frontline doctors. So I'm going to put that right up here. So that's the Ivermectin, that's the Z-Pack, and then all of these supplements. So he started that, but he didn't start it until he was 5 days in and he was always already having breathing problems. He went in and had the monoclonal antibodies. You know, the whole Joe Rogan thing.
Now, I was going to touch on that. Now, I'm sure everybody's familiar with Joe Rogan, and he was getting a lot of heat from the left-wing media that he was taking a horse dewormer. Yeah. There's two different types of ivermectin, right? There's a dosage that is meant for horses.
Well, it's like anything. There's antibiotics that humans take and animals take. It's dose dependent. Obviously, ivermectin was a medicine for humans that also can be used on animals. It's a parasitic, anti-parasitic. Anyway, so Mike did that. He did the monoclonal antibodies, but he waited too long. He still had to spend a week in the hospital.
Yeah.
He never had to get intubated, anything like that. He had a little bit of oxygen. They wanted to keep an eye on him. But he has some underlying conditions. Okay? He's fine now. He's perfectly fine. So then, before Thanksgiving, about a week, maybe
about a week,
5 days before Thanksgiving, my wife started feeling sick. And she said, I just have a headache that just won't go away. And we thought, let's test her. So a neighbor of ours had some home tests. She's a teacher. They give her all these home tests because they're supposed to test before they go to work. So my wife took it, and we didn't think it would be positive. And lo and behold, I look and I go, honey, I think this is a positive test.
We're pregnant.
Yes. That's what it looks like, a pregnancy test. Instead of peeing on it, you scrape your nose and drop it in a bottle. Anyway, so she did it, and I said, well, I better test now too. So I did. I was negative. So,
but I came over that day.
Yeah. Yeah, we filmed, right?
Yeah.
And you came over the next day when she had actually tested positive also with an outside lab.
Right.
So we tested at home. She was positive, I was negative. Then we tested on one of those PCR tests. She was definitely positive. I was still negative. Cedric came over. My wife was quarantined in the room, so he came over. We filmed. That was a couple weeks ago.
Right.
It was before Thanksgiving. And
I poked my head into the master bedroom and
he was
said hi.
Brave. I think he had a mask on though.
No. Just raw dogging.
So my wife her symptoms were, she had a headache, some congestion. So we thought, let's just hit this with everything. So I put this whole FLCCC protocol down. So there's a protocol for if you have it, an early treatment, and there's one if you've been exposed to it. So I started doing I've been exposed to it, but I didn't do the ivermectin. I just did all of the supplements because I didn't have any ivermectin at the point. She did everything. Then we signed her up. She did the monoclonal antibodies, sent her off for that. And so she just stayed in her room. So she spent Thanksgiving in the room. I started feeling sick on Thanksgiving.
I remember that.
Yeah, so I was just like drained. I'm thinking, it literally felt just like we were having winds here and fires. And when the winds and the fires kick up, I get allergies. That's what it felt like. I had allergies because I had been testing. I'd been testing negative, and I thought, okay, I'm fine. I got allergies. The next day, after Azure had been gone for over a week, I thought, let's test her, see if she's good after Thanksgiving. We tested her with a home test, and all of a sudden she was negative. I said, good. I said, I'm going to test myself. Because I was feeling good Friday, the day after. I tested myself, big time positive. I mean, that positive line popped up, bam. And I was feeling 100 times better that day than I was on Thanksgiving. All right, so now I'm thinking I better go.
On Black Friday.
Yeah, Black Friday. So Cedric thought it was a black thing. I told him it had nothing to do with that. So then we both got retested with the PCR test. She was still positive on that test because I found out. So for those who don't know, the home test is basically for the proteins. It's looking for the proteins, antibodies. The PCR test is looking for the RNA. So we both tested positive. So now I knew I'm definitely positive. So I immediately started taking all of the FLCCC stuff, including the horse dewormer. And then the next day I made an appointment to get a monoclonal antibodies. Now here's the fun part. The part I brought up with you. So I'm going to digress here for a minute. My wife was able to go to a clinic and get a free
Yes.
monoclonal antibodies because she's 100 pounds, 5 foot tall, 100 pounds, so she's not obese. But she has had hypertension and she's pre-diabetic. So she skated right in. My friend Mike, he was overweight, diabetic. Boom. He got the monoclonal antibodies. So I had my wife call the same company she had the monoclonal antibodies done. And she told him I had lost weight during this couple days. So she told him how much I weighed and said I was healthy. Guess what? I was too healthy to get the monoclonal antibodies. I was being penalized.
I couldn't believe that.
Because I didn't weigh enough. So what I did is I found another place, a private place. They still had to follow the guidelines, but they went off of I sent them my driver's license because they needed my ID and my insurance. My driver's license still said I weighed 175 pounds at 5'10". That put me overweight.
I'm in trouble.
So the guy said, your license says you qualify. I said, okay, great. Unbeknownst to them, I was down to 160 pounds at this point because the coughing and all that stuff. Anyway, so I went in and got the monoclonal antibodies the Saturday morning. So it was, Thursday was Thanksgiving, so Saturday. I still was only having, my symptoms were literally, I felt like I had allergies. So I was a little congested, didn't feel tired, nothing bad. I went and got the IV, and I'm in there and I'm kind of tired. I didn't sleep that well the night before. I drove home. When I got home, it was about a half-hour drive. I got the worst shivers. Just the
because I talked to you that morning.
Yeah, I was fine.
You sounded fine.
Yeah. So I get back. I've got a fever. I've got the chills, and all of a sudden I get nauseous. So I don't know if the COVID finally just hit me strong, or my body was just reacting to the monoclonal antibodies. So for that day until about 7 o'clock, and then the doctor gave me some anti-nausea stuff, and I was down in Gatorade, everything. That was the worst I felt. And then after that, I broke the fever that night. I sweat. I woke up, my shirt was drenched. The next day I woke up, and I was like, I feel good again. So maybe the monoclonal antibodies helped. I have no idea. But so then Sunday, I was tired. Mm-hmm. Monday, still tired. So what it did is, if anything, it's like having a cold, a bad cold, maybe a minor flu, not any flu. The only flu part I had is when I was nauseous, right. But just a cold that just doesn't let go. Yeah. So anyway, so for those of you wondering out there, I know that this is for certain people, this virus is horrible. Yeah. Like I said, my friend had to spend a week in the hospital. My wife was tired, had headaches, body aches. I had no body aches, so I didn't really have any flu symptoms. I had bad cold symptoms. Yeah. But what it is, it's, usually you get a cold and in 2 or 3 days, you're fine. Right. It's a cold that just doesn't want to let go. It just kind of holds you.
Did you think you contracted it from your friend while playing golf?
No, because I never saw him.
You never saw him?
We hadn't seen each other. He doesn't know how he got it. What's funny is we had gone to Nashville. I've been to Nashville 4 times now, hanging out in bars, no mask, never got COVID. Mm-hmm. My wife, the week before Thanksgiving, barely left the house, and she's like, I don't know where I got this. Right. So here we are, kind of isolated in our house, and then we catch COVID. And here's how it's kind of like wildfire. So, other than the whole non-qualifying, I think we kind of bypassed that. So, I finally qualified because I said I weighed more.
Your privilege didn't help you there, did it?
Yeah, exactly. So my buddy got it. Unrelated to that, my wife got it. Of course, I got it because I was taking care of her. I was in the same house. I wasn't being real careful. Then my son got it.
Well, before that, because I know part of the story too.
Before that. Okay. So while I was taking care of my wife, my friend who gave us the home test, yes, the teacher, all of a sudden she starts saying she has a cough and body aches. I'm like, oh, you're kidding. Because I had seen her at the store and she came over. So I asked her for honey after I tested positive, and I said, just put it inside the door. Well, she came in because she's like, Cedric thinks she's Teflon. She walked in and she's walking around the house while me and my wife both have it. Brings in the honey. The next day, she starts to get symptoms. Well, she comes down with it. Then her husband, who's been double vaxxed, he comes down with it, and he's pissed because his symptoms are no better, no worse than mine, right, and my wife's. He's like, I've got the same symptoms that you guys have, and I'm double vaxxed.
So whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated, There's still a chance you can catch this thing.
Yeah, and which we know. That's why places like Germany and stuff that are isolating the unvaxxed, which is ridiculous. So anyway, so they both get it. Now my son has it. Now my oldest daughter got it. The only person in this household that did not get it was my youngest daughter, but she's the one who lost her smell for 3 months last year. So her natural antibodies was much better than my neighbor that ended up getting it with the double vax. That's just an observation. YouTube, don't take me off for giving false information.
Right.
I'm just telling you what happened in this experience.
Right.
And again, not to lessen the fact that people have had bad outcomes. But you know what I think is, as they say, and I've been researching this, the remdesivir and putting people on ventilators, we know that's the worst thing you can do. Mm-hmm. And the problem is there's still, my buddy Mike, so here's, I got to backtrack just for a second. So Mike, who ended up going to the hospital, he asked his doctor wanted to put it on remdesivir. Well, he follows the frontline doctors and he says, no, I don't want to do that. Can I take my ivermectin? And the doctor said, well, we don't do that here, but if somebody puts it in your overnight bag, I'm not going to tell you no. So the doctor was cool enough to say, yes, you can use your protocol. So Mike went through the whole protocol, ends up going home. He's not on oxygen anymore. He's working. He's fine.
Good.
And and everybody else is going through it right now, and they're getting through it. Again, it's going to hit, especially with if you saw the last episode, and he was singing the Omicron song, or Omicron, how do you want to call it?
Moronic.
And if you listen to them, they use words. You're fear mongering again, like they did with the Delta variant. Even though they say it seems to be very transmissible, but it seems to be a very mild case. Yet they're scaring the crap out of people, and of course they're going to use this as an excuse to lock everything down. We were basically locked down. That's how we got it. When I was out in Nashville, we never got it. So again, these are just my personal experiences.
And to chime in here real quick, like Brian was saying, to pick on the mainstream media, if you listen to CNN and MSNBC, everyone's catching this thing. And I'll pick on the other channels, but if you listen to Fox, don't sweat it. I think you have to find a healthy medium for you. Is everyone catching it? No. Is it something to scoff at? No. So like Brian and I always say, do what's best for you. My own personal experience is that since day one, like starting last year, I've been very consistent with the vitamin C, the vitamin D, the zinc, and the drug that shall remain nameless. Can we talk about it? No.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think it's in the news anymore because I think most of the science goes towards the ivermectin, which hopefully I'm saying that it's okay, but the hydroxychloroquine, I think that was only because Trump mentioned it, all that time ago, that it became such a dirty word. Yeah. But why wouldn't, so I use an analogy. If you're a cancer patient and the doctor says, we've got all these treatments, these may work, these probably don't work, here, pick your poison. Now, if you got cancer, you're going to say, just give it to me, doc. Why are you going to say, no, don't give me that? If the side effects are very minimal, then if you're fighting for your life, you're going to say, please give me that. Give me that experimental drug in some cases. Well, we have drugs here that have been so demonized. I mean, and they take somebody like a Joe Rogan, and they demonize it, say that he's taking horse dewormer, which is the most ridiculous thing in the world. And so these people will not get early treatment. Whether you think it works or not, it's not going to harm you. Trust me. Right. My whole family has been taking the horse dewormer. Okay, we're all fine. If you look at every study, and you can't just go by me, that's just one thing, but if you go by all the studies, it's so much easier to die from an overdose of aspirin than from ivermectin. And that's just actual science. Tylenol, aspirin, those things have killed people much, much, much more than any of these demonized drugs out there. Mm-hmm. And as you've seen, I've been putting up charts and numbers, and if you look at all of I'm just going to put this one up right here. If you look at all of these, not just vaccines and drugs over the years, you start with, you got mumps up there and you've got polio and things like that. Very, very few side effects, because those were actual vaccines that had lots of clinical data and very, very bad side effects. When you go down to the bottom, look at the biggest one here. In just 2 years, not even 2 years, a year now, how many negative adverse reactions are from the vaccine because it's not really a vaccine, people. Okay, we keep using that term because this is 1980, it's George Orwell 1984. We just put words in that'll fit the narrative. It's drug therapy that people are using for COVID.
It's the same to get a booster for it.
Same as ivermectin, same as hydroxychloroquine. And you look on there, those numbers, there's hardly any, compared to that, there's hardly any adverse reaction. These are just adverse reactions. Deaths from ivermectin are almost nil. I don't even know if there's any in the literature from an overdose from that.
I have to fact check you on that.
Yeah, I mean, fact check, but I've been studying and I remember a lot of the terms. But look at that bottom one, and look at the one right above it. That's your seasonal flu vaccine. Those two have the most adverse reactions of anything going on for the last 70 years. And yet people will just take it like candy because they're told by their hospitals, by their doctors, by their insurance companies, by their employers, whoever. Yeah, get the flu shot. No big deal. And you're right, probably no big deal, but there's a heck of a lot no big deal on these other things, and that's a lot better way to treat most of this stuff. So it just gets frustrating. So now that I've gone through it, thank God I didn't have a bad case of it, and I know people that have died from it. It does happen, but people die in auto accidents, people die of regular flus, people die of heart failure every single day. It's something that to have the government tell us to take that drug therapy, it's not really a vaccine, that drug therapy with all of those adverse reactions, I mean, that's millions of adverse reactions, and forcing you to take it to be part of society is just unconscionable. And when we can just be treating it early, I'll put this back up too. There's the FLCCC. I will put a link to that because I think it's important for those of you who don't follow it. If you happen to get this or around something like this, start taking all this stuff. It's basically quercetin, zinc, C, D. We know D is so important, so why shouldn't we just be telling people just loading up on vitamin D? But anyway, I wanted you, since I went through this, and I wanted to just kind of go over my experience. And
I told him I was going to let him run with this because he was supposed to do this as a solo video.
But I figure it's better with Cedric and Brian.
Right.
And I did lose my smell and taste. But unlike my daughter, who lost her smell for 3 months, I can already smell Cedric, and it's only been... and I can already taste. So I only lost my taste for a few days. Kind of like if you have a bad cold.
Right.
So I know it does happen. And I have some people that they're going to use fear words too, like, oh my God, that's like a neurological thing. It's like, I've had colds where I lose my taste for a little while. So that's what happened. Neurological, not. I can taste now. I can smell. I've got a kind of a lingering cough, and my fatigue is gone.
Good.
And I got lots of energy.
Good.
So
we are shooting this for cable now.
If
you guys haven't already, and if you are coming down with a cold, it's just cold season. It's cold and flu season right now, regardless of what's going on. And you need a hot cup of warm apple cider. You should get one of these mugs here, a Cedric and Brian mug. They are going like hotcakes. Make sure you guys get them. A lot of you were clamoring for the logo and stuff. There are our mugs. What a great Christmas gift that would be to drink your hot chocolate out of, or your hot apple cider, or whatever it is.
And can you tell that's us? Our faces there.
But you know what you're doing? Like Brian said, this healthy individual. If it wasn't for this man, I wouldn't have got into the weightlifting and stuff. So continue doing what you're doing with lifting weights. Get outside. Eat your fruits and vegetables. Stay healthy. Take your vitamins. Like I said, I'm taking my vitamin C, D, zinc, and hydroxychloroquine. Whatever it is you need to take to do for you. Stay hydrated. And does that mean that you won't get it? Absolutely not. You still can. But just like any other cold or flu, if you don't have any other comorbidities, you should come through this just fine. I've been kind of spitting in the wind at this thing, so we'll see what happens. But we'll just keep pushing on.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks for listening, guys. I hope for those of you who've already had COVID, you can kind of let us know your experience in the comments. And for those of you who haven't, make sure you go on the link for the FLCCC protocol. I'm telling you, I can't tell you 100% if that's why it was so mild for me, because I'm not young. So people say, well, you're young and healthy. Well, I'm 56. I'm in that category that should be in the higher, problems from COVID. Yes, I am fairly healthy because I try to stay in shape, but I am not young. I'm not 20. So my son, who's 21, he's probably not going to be down at all from this. So
He's in there right now.
I know he's yelling and playing his video games. So all right, we better wrap this up.
Maybe I can put the quick screen up. Remember, coming in January, we are going to be on CTVA, which stands for Conservative TV of America. If you have Roku, I think it's Fire Stick, and some other things that we're going to put up on the screen here. Make sure you download that so you can catch Cedric and Brian on cable starting in January.
Yep.
But until then, make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell, and share our channel with everyone you know, especially this video, as Brian talks about his personal battle with Omicron. I'll just say it's COVID. In the meantime, continue being good to each other. I'm Cedric.
See you later.